This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. And finally, things have kind of let loose in the Edmonton Oilers realm. Obviously, we enjoyed the big time May long weekend where it was rain, sun, but no snow. So we are off and running for what is going to be an excellent summer here in Alberta once again. Again, one more time, if you are dealing with wildfires in your neck of the woods, I'm hoping you're staying safe and hopefully the smoke's not too bad. We just went through a weekend where it was real bad down here. Gorgeous weekend with obviously a lot of smoke. So just wanted to send that out right now. But as also, we start off the Tuesday following May long with the Daily Faceoff, I believe it was, releasing a list of the top free agents available, the top kind of contract guys available, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had with this list for the Edmonton Oilers faithful, us fans who are a little disappointed with how things finished out just a little bit ago there. But now with some time to reflect on it, we kind of know what we want to trade out, what we want to trade in, what we want to make a little bit of amends with, and try and do a little bit better with. So with that in mind, friends, if you're new to the channel, before we get to the serious stuff, I'd like to ask you to consider sticking around for the summer, next season, and beyond by hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. It'd be greatly appreciated if you want to stick around and find out exactly how this all breaks down for the Oilers. So starting off, we'll break down the number one target in my mind. You've kind of seen three targets pop up today. If you're anything of a thinking Oilers fan, you would know that there's three good possibilities out there that have been mentioned. Obviously, Oilers Alert on Twitter had a whole list, but I think I'm going to pick it down to the three best. You saw them in the title. Let's discuss, starting off with Dylan Demelo on the back end for the Winnipeg Jets, who's making $3 million next year, modified no trade clause, a 6th-round draft pick back in 2011. He will be 30 years old going into next season. He just turned 30 back on May 1st. A guy who's a right-hand shot defenseman by the looks of it. Yep, right-hand shot, right defense kind of guy. Been in the league since 15, 16, right? A guy that, okay, I see where you're going with this. And you look at it from here, right? 45 games back then, 25 with the Sharks in 16-17, 63 with the Sharks in 17-18, 2 years in Ottawa, 77-49, and then, now 4 years in Winnipeg, kind of split a year between Ottawa and Winnipeg, 10 games, 52, 76, 75. Why am I mentioning this? Because everyone's kind of talking about how Mr. Evan Bouchard's a rookie and all this. Well, you want kind of protection on the right hand, you want depth on the right hand, you want a guy with experience on the right hand. Well, how about this guy? 472 games does Dylan Demelo have on his NHL career. 14 goals, 99 assists, 113 points. He's played 24 playoff games, so he's got some experience, right? He's a guy who has produced only 3 assists in the playoffs, but he's got playoff experience. You look at it here as well. A guy who racks up penalty minutes throughout the course of a season, just had a career high in penalty minutes with 50 this past year for the Jets. And a guy who just had his best offensive year as well in the NHL, 27 points this year. So maybe catching a guy at a good time, an upswing kind of situation, and an ideal situation for the Oilers. Should they, here's the hook, line, and sinker of my argument, should they trade Cody Ceci to the Winnipeg Jets, right? This would be a nice little offload trade for both teams. They don't know what direction they're going with Dylan Demelo and the rest of the organization. And secondarily, too, adding a guy like Cody Ceci, who's kind of a security blanket on the back end, just in a top 4 role, right? The Oilers are playing him a little low to depth by having him as a top pairing guy, but right, Cody Ceci in your top 4 at 3.25 is not going to hurt you. The Oilers could maximum save 2.5 or 250,000 in cap space if they don't find a way to just find something else on the Winnipeg Jets roster they might like. So Dylan Demelo, probably, I've talked to a couple of people today. Dylan Demelo is probably the top target when it comes to being an Oilers fan, wanting to trade right-hand shot defenseman for right-hand shot defenseman. Dylan Demelo at $3 million, saves some cap, all this. Yeah, you might have to give something else up to get Cody Ceci out of Edmonton, but at the end of the day, you're getting a rock-steady defender in Dylan Demelo. That's not going to hurt you, which I think we could all definitely enjoy. And especially too, right? He's 6'0", 191 pounds, so not the biggest guy on the blue line, but should be able to anchor it down a little bit for Darnell Nurse on that right-hand side. course, however you want to shake it up, there's 1,000,001 combinations. So stay tuned. But I like Dylan Demelo. We'll mention some other guys as well right now. I think one other guy that's getting a lot of talk right now, just based on what's happened today, is Damon Severson, who is a UFA, 28 years old. He's coming out of the New Jersey Devils, right-hand shot, right defenseman. He was drafted back in 2012, and he is expecting a $6 million plus payday this year. That's what we're hearing from everybody and anybody who is covering the NHL free agency market. I think we've heard it from Daily Faceoff quite several times here, but he's a guy who averages anywhere between 30 to 45 points in a season over the past 6-7 years. So it makes sense, right? He does get paid. Obviously, there's a reason I like Dylan Demelo over Damon Severson, because I think Dylan Demelo fits the bill. 1 year left on the deal. You trade him for Cody Ceci, you save cap, all that. Whereas Damon Severson, 6'2", 205, so you get a little bit bigger on the back end there. And I guess for Damon Severson, it's not the worst. Not the worst case scenario if you have to spend some money on a defenseman. But now you're talking about trading Yamamoto and, of course, Cody Ceci to make this deal work, right? You got a clear cap. You aren't going to magically get $6 million in cap space from the NHL this summer. So that's what you need to know there. So Damon Severson, I just want to mention that name. I know he's kind of the top guy in free agency right now, like top of the board. You can dream, likely not to happen. I don't see it. I don't really want it. Dylan Demelo's my guy. Now, another guy that is kind of a secondary option to Dylan Demelo in my mind, a guy that we're going to see mentioned several times here as well, UFA 30-year-old Scott Mayfield, another right-hand shot, right defenseman. You see this pattern here, right? It's all about these guys drafted in 2011. Scott Mayfield, who's probably coming in right off his deal here over the past several years at $1.45 million. Just had a great year with New York, putting up career numbers, probably coming in at that about $3 million price tag as well. So that's where it comes down to it, and the playoff experience that you need, you're paying for with 57 games played in the NHL playoffs so far. So again, we're talking things left, right, and center with Dylan Demelo, that he's a guy that's played in the league since, not Dylan Demelo, sorry, Scott Mayfield. He's played in the league since 2013-14, and we're looking to add another guy with playoff experience that would be very useful for a cup run. And you think too here, he's 6'5", 223. That's why he's on the board being mentioned to potentially come to the Edmonton Oilers. So that's where we kind of settle in on those targets right now, is Dylan Demelo, Scott Mayfield, Damon Severson. That's the order I would approach it in. Obviously, too, the Oilers have to ask themselves, are they trying to trade out to make cap space? Or are you making cap space elsewhere on the roster and then adding a piece like that on the back end via that, right? Cody Ceci for Dylan Demelo makes sense 100% of the way. I honestly couldn't complain about that. You swap piece for piece and see what you do going forward. In terms of Scott Mayfield, what's not to like with the big body, 6'5" in the 220s, put up a career year last year. You sign him for about $3 million. You probably don't lose anything. You also go out there and look at Damon Severson. And I think here's the thing. If Ken Holland's going to make one big move this summer, it's going to be a right-hand shot defenseman on the top pair with Darnell Nurse. So that, again, kind of bodes to that yellow bananas versus ripening bananas, is you just got to go out there and make a move that's going to impact this team one last time and one last go-around. Damon Severson seems to be that kind of player, although very unlikely in my mind because of the cost. However, there's always a way to figure it out, right? We haven't brought up Warren Foegele. Yamamoto and Foegele likely to be the targets out front that could potentially be moved this summer. So you're talking about a combined almost $6 million in cap space there. Can you find a way to spend a couple extra dollars on Damon Severson if the cap goes up $3 to $4 million? Sure. So there's a ton of things here that's starting to evolve for the Edmonton Oilers. But today, finally, we get our first look at 3 potential names that the Oilers might be targeting, might be looking at, might be interested in. And now we can kind of start breaking it down here day by day as more of this kind of stuff comes out from the NHL insiders. And we can start breaking down, okay, here's what we need to look at. Here's who we need to look at. Here's who we need to follow. Here's what we need to understand. And here's what we have to work with. So ton of stuff coming down the pipe, I'm sure. And it's just nice to start this May-long Tuesday off with a bang, having some bigger news, right? We've kind of had some minor stuff, but I think everybody wants Yamamoto and Ceci out anyway. realistically, there's not much else to really talk about outside of that. I've had some shorts up here on the channel, but now we get some concrete things to talk about. That's why I took the day off yesterday. I didn't want to force the topic. So here we are now being able to talk about something a little bit more concrete and just get our first feelers out. I know I've talked to Patrick from the Oilers Fanatic quite heavily over the past year about how just magical June, July was as an Edmonton Oilers fan and YouTuber last summer. And I'm hoping the Oilers will try and run that back a little bit this summer for us this time around. Friends, I'm Tyson. This is Dolynny TV. Thanks so much for being aboard this afternoon. I am up on out of here.